Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast by Essence Learning LLC, and a place where leaders learn from leaders. Let's join today's episode.
Hello, and welcome back to our Perspectives podcast, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm so glad to have you back and joining us today. I am Kanetra Hights, your host. And today we're going to be talking about recruiting the right talent at the right time. As we all know, hiring is continuing across America. How we talk about the workforce and the labor force has also been changing as well. So today we want to talk about how important it is for leaders to really recruit the right talent at the right time to ensure that organizational success. But before we dive right back into our topic, I would be dismissed with not to introduce our amazing panelists today. So I'm going to give them time. Go ahead, introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your professional background as well.
Well, of course, I'll just go ahead and jump in. I'm Valerie Wilson. Welcome, everyone, to our podcast. I'm very excited about our topic. I am the CEO and founder of Essence Learning, and I welcome you to today's podcast. Thanks for joining us, Kiki.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, well, I'm going to jump over to Luis so he can introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Luis Vasquez. I am the executive director at the San Antonio LGBT Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a passionate advocate for small businesses and a champion for DEI and an entrepreneur. So happy to be here. Thank you for sharing this space.
Thank you for joining us, Luis. We're happy to have you. And then, of course, Andrea Hartman. It wouldn't be last but not least, of course. Go ahead. I'll give you the mic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Hardiman, also known as Dre or Drea. I'm the Director of University Relations for USAA, and I also serve as an adjunct professor. And I just am thankful to be here and excited about the topic.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Andrea, for introducing yourself. So, going back into our topic, and we're talking about recruiting and especially the right talent. Recently studies have come out that in 2023, the percentage of the U.S. labor force has risen to 62.5%. It's become its highest level since our early stages of the pandemic in 2020. So, we always talk about people are understaffed and the hiring sign is still on, and I'm not getting people who want to stay at the organization and things beyond that. So looking at that, and we're talking about how do we go beyond those aspects? What advice would you give to organizations to go beyond the polished resumes, the pre-screened references, the scripted answers, and really get to the core of who a candidate is and if they're going to be the right fit for the right culture?
I don't mind jumping in really quick on that one. Being in university relations, I am a big proponent of identifying talent early. And so it's never too soon to start building your brand, but then also educating our younger generation about the work that we're doing currently. Because again, the type of work may change from year to year. You want to make sure that they're aware of what they should pursue based on their skill set, what they enjoy, what they love. And so really engaging with the community and getting to know the talent pool is a great way to start bridging that gap and identifying people. You need to become familiar with the organization. And so having networking opportunities, making sure you're tied to your chambers of commerce and whatever events that can allow you to engage with the community and get to know the talent. Then also, of course, the colleges and universities, and making sure that your digital platform really illustrates what it is that you do and what you're looking for, so that those that have those skills will be able to connect with you. And partnering with your local economic development council or other city entities that have workforce planning programs that you can identify talent through them as well, and also offer support to make sure that they are shaping our workforce the way they need to be shaped to do the work that you're looking for.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Dre. I'm going to jump in too and just piggyback off of what you're saying. You mentioned as you were talking, Dre, that the work type has changed. The type of work that we're looking for, the positions have changed. It's not the same jobs, careers, opportunities that it used to be, and that we are so used to looking for when we talk about professions. And so we've got to really start to look and identify really what are the positions that are open and what are the roles and what are the expectations, what are the opportunities that exist. And so we as employers or we as hiring managers really need to have some clarity around what has changed in terms of what we're hiring and what we're hiring for, what positions we want people to hold. Once we get some clarity around that, then we need to look at those resumes for some of those transferable skills because, we've been doing some things, what looks like even for customer service 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is totally different than what customer service looks like today. All of our professions have changed. And so we need to look for some of those skills that transfer over and say, if you know how to do this, then we can easily train or transition you into these types of positions. So looking at resumes, not just for experience, you've done this before, but what are some of the transferable skills that you have done that we could transfer over to support some of these new positions that we have that are now available. And so I think that's really key in today's workplace, as you start to think about how do I now find that new talent? I don't know that we're going to find new talent. We're just going to probably have to be able to identify the talent that's out there and can we transfer those skills to our new positions?
Absolutely. I totally agree with both of you. Being able to attract top talent and just looking beyond, the polished resumes, the pre-screen references and all of that, right? To Drea's point, having organizations be involved in the community, whether it is at any level of those journeys, right, of the top talent that we're looking into recruiting, is essential. Providing education on building resumes and being able to get in all of those skills, whether it's into the resumes or how they, able to, the candidates are able to share that with the recruiting and in the hiring process. It's also important to develop systems internally that eliminate biases in the hiring process, whether it's anonymizing resumes or implementing, scorecards or anything like that is going to help candidates get to those positions and be able to recruit them. And I'll share a little bit about my story. I mentioned I was an entrepreneur for about 12 years, and getting closer to 2019, I was already thinking of, what would be my next opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. But wearing different hats in a business, I knew I had so many transfer skills, but I was not I didn't have a lot of experience in interviewing for jobs, right? And I remember applying for this very exciting position. And when I got to the hiring process, when I got the first interview, it was virtual. And it was one of those systems where you have to, record your answer. And I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And it was very, and I am a millennial, right? So you would think, some of those biases is that I will be tech savvy and make it happen. And unfortunately, I think with both missed out. I missed out on the opportunity that the organization missed out on having me a part of. And yeah, so I think it's great to understand that, the workforce has evolved. Like you all mentioned, there's different opportunities there for everyone that seems very different to what we've known.
Gosh, Luis, you cracked me up because I think about back in when I guess I was thinking about career changing, and it was about 2018, 2019. And at my age, with the skill sets that I had, it was just like, I don't even know where to start. I didn't even know, you talk about the sharp resume. I hadn't dusted off a resume in 20 something years. I hadn't even thought about interviewing. I didn't even know what that looked like, even though I was part of an interview panels and interviewed people all the time. Me being now the candidate was a whole different experience. And it's intimidating. And it's, you know, when you think about, you talked about how to, education on how to write that attractive resume. At that time, nobody even really knew what the resume is supposed to look like. It was changing even as we were trying to do that. So this is pretty intimidating environment people are faced with now during this interviewing process. So this is a great topic to have, but you bring up a great point. It's hard out here trying to get jobs and put that right talent in the right place.
I think another, you mentioned about how different it is. And one of those elements is the digital interview. It was such a transition to go to that virtual environment and try to make that connection. And so that interview process has created a different skill set regarding that interview process. And so getting over that hump of being nervous, and then what is my background looking like? What do I have on? How am I being perceived? And seeing myself as a distraction as I'm interviewing, and all of those things. And so there are tools out there to help, prepare you for the virtual interview. Another thing are the recorded interviews and the virtual assessments. And so everything is looking toward changing to be more aligned with this technologically advanced process. And we have to make that shift. If you're in the technical arena, you may be asked to code right there on the spot so they can watch you as you do the work. And so all of that you need to understand and be prepared for.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Got to get those resources. Thanks for that. Maybe that's something we can drop in the chat box or something at some point or offer when we show this podcast, because that's important. That education piece. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something Drea said, because it hit really hard when she talked about you as an employee. You have to have your digital background and your digital board ready to go for them. So, and I'm thinking about from an employee perspective. So I know, Drea, you told me one time, you're like, your LinkedIn needs to tell your whole story in your career so that they can see your best skills and that you're the best worker for the job. So, from that employee perspective, how do you put your best self forward when you're looking to land that desired position? How do you enhance your digital presence so that people can look at you and say, I want that person for that job because I know that person would be the best. They have the best skills to do the job that's there. So give our audience some advice on how you put that step forward. If I'm out there and I'm looking for a career or even a career change, what are some of the things that I need to do?
It's funny. I remember teaching a session on LinkedIn, and I was sharing the importance of making sure you know who you are before you build it so that you know what you want to present. So I think really the first thing you need to do is understand what your values are, what your strengths are, and know what your brand is. Like, what do you want your brand to be? And then start building that story based on your career, based on your volunteer opportunities and community engagements, as well as the opportunity for you to do things like this, and the fact that your education speaks to certain elements of you too. And then you begin building that. I'm not the best at it. I can teach it. I tell everybody, I'm good at giving advice, but I'm not good at taking it now as well. But it works. And that's why, Kiki, I was like, I noticed it because I was like, yes, this is how you tell the story, and same thing with social media. I tell people all the time, your digital footprint is there. And it's going to be there
forever.
And so understand that you are responsible for the image you want to portray, no matter what that is. And so maybe, and I know you want that personal place for expression, but at what cost? And so your brand is everything. It's your social, it's your presence when you walk in the room. And so consistency is important. I know a lot of people like to say, well, this is my personal site, and this is where I do my whatever that's personally me, and then here is my social facing. site. And at some point, you have to identify, who am I authentically, and make sure you show up authentically. But you have to make sure that it's what you're wanting to project. Sometimes if there's a disconnect and you're not getting what you want, look at what you're presenting. Look at your brand.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't have anything to add to that other than to probably emphasize the branding, and that builds, to the more that you do and the more that you're seen and the more experiences that you have, your branding continues to build. And so even going back out and adjusting and changing it as it goes and making it fresh and new, so that if an organization looked at you 6 months ago or last year and they come back, they don't see necessarily a change, but they see a difference other than a transition or growth or development. They see you progressing and they see you're consistent with that brand. So I think, I've talked to people and said, oh, well, right now it's not a good time. And I've gone back 6 months later or 8 months later, and I've seen them grow and develop and show more of themselves, be more transparent of the things that they can accomplish and have accomplished. And then you think, oh, like to Luis's point, maybe I missed out. This person has not just, they're walking now into new positions and in new opportunities that perhaps I could have had them on our team and been a part of that. So I think, to Dre's point, is that we've got to remember that this should evolve. It shouldn't just stay stagnant. I updated it in 2019 or 2022 or something like that. And in 2025, it looks the same. It needs to continue to evolve. So people look at that. I know if I'm going to go back and say, oh, Luis was a good candidate, I'm going to go back and I remember him. Let me go back and look at. And if it hasn't changed since 2019, I think, okay, well, I'm going to move on. But if I see him evolving, then it might be more interesting. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah. I also think your community brand too exists and it evolves, right? Because how you act in the community, the things that you do as well, all of that attributes to your brand, and also what makes you marketable as a person as well, because you have that digital experience. But how are you as a person? What are the characteristics you have? Do you fit in culture-wise? And I think that community brand or that out there brand also is very important when we talk about recruiting talent.
Good points. Perfect.
Kiki, real quick, something that I always, whenever I do personal branding sessions, I talk about Miley Cyrus, because I don't want anybody to think, oh my gosh, my brand's out there and I'm stuck. She took Hannah Montana, and I'm not advocating for going all the way to the left, but she went to the left to reset. So there is this opportunity to reset and rebrand. To your point, Valerie, earlier about, you looking and seeing the evolution of someone. And so I don't want people to think, oh gosh, this is all out there and I'm stuck. No, you're not. There is grace. There are people that have grace out there, and you can rebrand and own that growth. Yeah, I was this before, but now I realize I am this, and this is what I'm walking into, and I'm in my truth.
That's great. That before and after.
Right. And when we talk about talent as well, I personally can't bring up talent and not talk about diversity, because that's the field that I'm in. And we talk about recruiting diverse talent. That's the words that are getting thrown out now. Do we need to recruit diverse talent? Why are we recruiting diverse talent? It goes back and forth too. It's good, it's bad. What are we doing with that? And so I want to know what you think about that role of diversity in the recruiting and the hiring process as well. Because I tell people all the time, it's about where you're looking. Where are you looking, and where are you attracting talent from to get that diverse pool of candidates? So what are your thoughts on that diversity role in recruiting? I know it's a heavy question.
I think we're all just running to jump in and not know who's
I know. It's like
I'm looking at Luis, because I think that's kind of where
I know. I was going to say, Luis, you're a diversity champion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, studies just studies just shown time after time that DEI increases a company's competitive advantages, right? It just gives a company a credibility. And when we talking about recruiting, and I think about also from the internal perspective, internally from a company, from the marketing perspective, how can a company utilize the resources to attract and retain diverse talent, right? So I know for me, when I was looking into these growing opportunities, I was going into websites and social media and seeing the impact that these companies had, in our communities, right? That we were part of. So, yeah, definitely seeing the hiring process from a DEI perspective is something that leads to greater performance and profitability. Profitability for companies.
And I want to echo what Luis is saying, because yes, we know diversity is a good thing. We know that diverse thought produces innovation. It produces necessary change to remain relevant in your industry. And Kiki, when you said it's about the outreach portion, it's about the sourcing and creating access to all, so that everyone has an opportunity to compete for the role. And so making sure that you're present in those areas where people who may not know about the opportunity find out and actually show up well. I totally enjoy having a diverse team, and what comes out of it is so amazing, because we all come together with these different mindsets. And when I say diversity, I want people to understand it's broad. It's not just ethnicity and gender, it's also your age. It's everything that makes you uniquely you. And you bring that to the table from the place of your environment and exposure, and allow us to come up with amazing solutions to problems that we experience, or ideas that can take us to that next level, become more efficient. And so definitely a proponent of.
Yeah, I agree with that. When we think about that talent and diverse talent, it has a connotation around it that you're looking for a specific person or group of people. Where when we think about hiring that diverse talent, we're really thinking about, do we have a plethora of people, uniqueness, ideas, thoughts, experiences in our hiring pool that we can select from, so that we can select the talent that we need to drive our organization forward. And so when we think about, the question that's always in the room when you start talking about diverse talent, that elephant in the room is, do we have to hire someone of color, or do we have to hire someone from LGBT group, or do we have to hire a certain age or gender? And so we start thinking that it's a limitation. And what we're saying is, we have to have all of those and more in our pool. We have to have a representation of our community, so that when we're creating our products and we're creating our programs and our services, that we have a mindset that is a mirror to the people that we're serving. And if we don't have that, then we can't serve them. We don't know what their needs are. We don't have any idea what they are. So it's not a matter of, I need a certain group. I need all groups. And I need to understand what I'm mirroring and who am I serving, so that I make sure that I'm attracting the right knowledge, the right experiences, the right skills to move our organization forward. Because, we can't rely on the same 10 brilliant minds that we've been relying on. We've got to broaden our perspectives and our thoughts. So when we think about diverse talent, we're not talking about a group, because we're talking about groups. We're talking about mixtures. We're talking about similarities. We're talking about differences. We're talking about all of that, putting it all in a pot. And then I can look and say, look at this beautiful array of options that we have. What is the best things for our organization? And we select it from that perspective. And that makes our diverse talent that much more meaningful to do all the things we've been talking about. So yeah, it's sometimes we have that conversation of people wanting to think that, well, if I do that, then I have to hire and meet a quota or meet a certain criteria. And that's not what we're talking about. And that's not ideal. What is ideal is to have an option from all sorts of experiences, workplaces, and in gender and race, and all of those things are part of it. But I think we really want to make sure we keep that door open, that we have a good pool.
Val, I have a great example of that. I was doing some coaching and I had a leader who they had done a disc profile on the whole team. And that particular leader was a C and hired everybody that was a C. And had one person who was different, and they were a I. And so this one I was having a terrible experience on the team, and they were stuck. They weren't growing. They weren't evolving. And
so, Dre, wait, before you go too far, tell our listeners what a C and I is for those who may not have.
Okay, let me say that. Okay, so the DISC personality profile, you've got C's. Those are your consistent people. They're very detail oriented. They are kind of they don't like change as much. And so it's that person though, but they are great contributors when it comes to that detail analysis and truth and facts. Mm-hmm. And then you have this I who is that more personable person who actually engages with that social component. So you can see how the C and the I would be totally different. And giving that feedback and sharing, they were surprised. They didn't realize they had been hiring themselves. So they needed to diversify their team with a personality type. Who are those people? And then what that did, that allowed them to bring that I in and really value them because they weren't feeling valued. They didn't feel they belonged on the team. And so it's all of that. And so being aware of who you're hiring and why is so important because you don't want to have a bunch of yous. You need to have some people that are going to challenge your thought and push you to that next level. And don't be afraid of difference.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great. That's great.
And I think it's important for organizations to teach those traits and behaviors as well, like interviewing diverse talent. How do you interview diverse talent? So you're not hiring people who are exactly like you. Hiring managers need to be educated in that as well as recruiters need to learn how to look for diverse talent also,
Oh, well, Kiki, though, when you say that, how we could almost feel, I could almost feel the tension, the frustration. It's like, oh my God, sitting across from somebody who's totally opposite than me, and then wanting to hire them. That's that's just something that we've a skill that as people who are looking to hire, as hiring managers and companies who are looking for diverse talent, we've got to be able to manage that and say, I've got to sit across the room from somebody who talks, and I don't like talkers, and I got to sit across the room from somebody who wants to jump in and give their ideas, and I really want to just move along. And so that in itself is just a challenge that you can almost feel the tension in you when somebody says that to you, where you need to look for somebody that's different than you. Someone's like, well, why would I do that?
I'm hearing you say, be aware of your unconscious biases.
Gotta be.
Yeah. Managing yourself.
We've got to lean into it. We really do, and be aware of it, because otherwise we can't get past our own barrier to hiring that person, because we're like, I just can't imagine that I'm going to hire somebody so different than me. Yeah. Won't that make my job harder? Won't that make my day harder?
I had to learn from a C. So I'm a D. I'm that person that runs and gets the job done quickly and all of that. And I realized I need C's in my life to slow me down and make sure I'm checking all the boxes and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And so you have to learn to embrace those differences by identifying what you're lacking and seeing how they can be that piece of the puzzle that make you whole.
Yeah, being transparent with that is huge.
And that's why I stress the educational part of that for leaders in particular. And I know Valerie, your Essence of Respect class has a great part in there about how to manage yourself through unconscious bias, and how also people look at things differently, and how do you take those different aspects of respect or your different biases that you do have and sit across from somebody and experience that tension and know that you're okay in that tension, and then to really focus on, why am I here? Who am I looking for? And what am I looking to fulfill as well. So,
That's right.
I just throw that out because you do a great job with your Essence of Respect class of
Thank you,
getting
Kiki.
leaders prepared for that. So, I encourage people who are listening, go to essencelearning.net to learn more about the Essence of Respect course, as well as other courses that Valerie does have, so that you can start to incorporate that into your organization on how to learn more for your leaders as well.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Essence of Respect.
Yeah, great course. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. We've come up to it.
Oh, it's over?
You're done already?
That was fast.
To keep going and on with this conversation, and maybe we'll bring this back for a part 2, a surprise later on in the future. But Luis, Drea, Valerie, thank you so much for your insight today. I'm sure our audience is appreciated it as well. And for those of you listening, please visit us at essencelearning.net, and you can find a Perspectives podcast near you on any podcast format. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining Perspectives, a podcast by Essence Learning LLC. Essence Learning is your solution to personal and professional development. We partner with our clients to develop a learning strategy that will increase productivity, enhance performance, and align with their purpose and goals. For more information, visit us online at essencelearning.net or call us at 1-877-657-5755.